Hold up, I ain't trying to stump, man, but the Yeezys jumped over the jump, man. I be in and out of arenas like I'm Scottie Pippen. Left my elbow in the pot, a la Vince Carter.
Bitch, you wasn't with me shooting in the gym?
James Harden with the range on me, nigga, way back. Coach, they won't knock me off my pivot, forget it.
Been flowing stupid since Vince Carter was on some through the legs arm and a hoop shit.
And you can live through anything if magic made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, now you do.
Yes, sir. We are back. Round of applause for yourselves. This is your guy, Marcellus Ease, and we got some good stuff on the docket for today. We're going to hear from Paul George and some of the inner nuances that took place with him leaving the Clippers. Also, Klay Thompson and the fallout with him and the Golden State Warriors. That took us all by surprise, but we'll hear some of the sentiments that he had in his opening press conference with the Dallas Mavericks. And also with the salary cap going up and players potentially could be making up to $70 to $80 million a year. We should no longer hear the stories about athletes going broke, but we'll hear directly from Cam Newton and Charles Barkley about some of the inner nuances that athletes face from family members and friends and even girlfriends. And let's include those Instagram thotties contributing to the shocking number of 80% of guys going broke just being 5 to 10 years out the league. And last but not least, we'll take a look at the back and forth between Stephen A. Smith and Jaylen Brown and some of the inner nuances that take place with the intellectual NBA player, guys like Kareem, Mo Bamba, and even to a degree Kyrie Irving. There's always been a clash between those player archetypes and media members, especially pertaining to the marketability, which will lead us to dive deeper into today's corporate athlete. What does he stand on? Is he just supposed to be a universal figure with no backbone? Sort of the same way that we see the issue with Drake and Kendrick Lamar playing out in the hip-hop sphere. We'll touch base on that topic on a multitude of layers. So Podcast P, aka Paul George, did a sit down and he gave us some great insight to some of the inner nuances that played out with his negotiations with the Los Angeles Clippers upon his exit and joining Joel Embiid in the Philadelphia 76ers. And a couple things were said that'll raise eyebrows if you look in between the lines with the details. But before we hear him speak, let's remember the excitement Steve Ballmer had and took out a couple of loose pocket change of stocks and cashed those in and flat out purchased the Clippers for $2 billion, which was unprecedented at the time.
I have these notes, but I gotta say I'm just fired up to be here today. It's pretty cool, pretty damn cool. Woo!
Man, cashing in $2 billion worth of stocks to buy an NBA team, that'll have anyone feeling like they just took a bunch of steroids. But remember that roided up energy that we just felt, as Paul George right here will further explain, of how the energy was quite different when they met up for negotiations. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Yeah, so, we spent the weekend together down in Cabo, and I came back and I had that meeting with Philly that Sunday night, and David Blitz came, Josh Harris, Elton Brand, Dr. J. Bro, I had Dr. J in my crib.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. OG.
Julius.
Shout out Peter Dinwiddie, Daryl Morey, just the whole, majority of the Philly front office was there at the house. And, it was a great meeting, and talk about organization. Not to say that the Clippers didn't and the Clippers don't, but just an organization that just was like, man, you're our guy. Like, we believe in you. We want you here.
And they're also showing him. Everyone had traveled out to have Dr. J in your house. And that's a big fucking deal, even for Paul George. But just that understanding of them making a player like Paul George feel wanted, it's going to have lasting effects, as we're going to see it play out here.
No perfect pairing with you, Joel, Tyrese together. And it was just, my family felt it. I felt it. It just felt like, all right, this is where I'm going to spend the next chapter of my life. And so it felt good, man. Like I said, Dr. J was in the crib. I know that was big for my dad.
Now, right here, notice how the energy shifts from where Steve Ballmer was at 5 years ago in that press conference when he sounded all roided up.
Just to put it out there, like, I never wanted to leave LA, right? Initially, I was not trying to leave LA. LA is home. This is where I wanted to finish at. I wanted to work as hard as possible to win one in LA. Like, that was the goal, to be here and be committed to LA. As it played out, though, like, the first initial deal was, I thought, kind of disrespectful, right? And again, in all of this, no hard feelings, no love lost, no, like, it's a business, like you said. So the first initial deal was like 2 years, 60.
Woo, 2 years, 60. Wow, with this cap going up, 2 years, 60 is for like a good third option in the league. And keep in mind, with the salary cap going up, star players not only going to get more money, it's going to be a lot harder to get trades initiated going forward. We're going to see less deals being made in between teams. But just them starting off negotiations like that, it's already off on the wrong foot. And it leaves you to wonder, did they really believe in this team?
So I'm like, whoa. 2 years, 60?
Hey, that's crazy, bro.
That's great.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So I'm like,
Wow.
no, I'm not signing that. Like, now we're getting into the negotiating. Like, no, I'm not taking that deal. And so they slowed, like, they saying this, that, like, you know, we want you and Kawhi here long term. Like, we want y'all to be here, all of this stuff, right? So then, you know, as we're continuing to negotiate as the season goes on, and mind you, this was started before the season started. So this was kind of like, I could be wrong on actual timing, but this was maybe like October-ish.
Which sounds about right. That's normally when extensions get made with younger players and sometimes with star players. Because the star players, unlike the younger players, they don't have a deadline to negotiate while the season's going on. But the keen detail that comes out here is that this was the offer made before the season started. So you can only imagine carrying that type of energy that they lowballed you, entering into a brand new season where there are pressures to win. Something like that is not going to sit right for someone that you're really trying to keep.
When negotiations first started, and it was 260. And as we kept going, it was like, you know, they would go up, you know, inches, to where it was like 44, 45, right? But this was like a couple months in between before we got it to 40 something. So,
damn, that's a hard bargain. They have a new arena coming up. They got to fill those seats in that LA market, which is already saturated by the Lakers. And the Clippers are claiming they want these guys there long term. Something is rotten in Denmark.
I'm still like, nah, I'm not doing that. Then I hear wind of, like, you know, what they're going to give Kawhi. So I'm like, just give me what Kawhi got. Like,
Right.
y'all view us the same. Like,
So that will be around January. Kawhi was offered a 3-year deal for 150, fully guaranteed. So when Paul George had stated earlier, months later, they bumped the number up to 40. It's around that time that they gave Kawhi 50 for 3 years.
you know, we came here together. We want to finish this shit together. I'll take what Kawhi got. Like, no
You was cool
problem.
with that.
I was cool with that. Like,
Wow.
and we were still taking less. We were taking less.
Wow.
Kawhi took less. I was like, if Kawhi gonna take less, I'm not gonna say I want more than Kawhi. Like,
That's Paul George's mistake right there. He has the leverage to do so. If Kawhi wants to take less, that's on him. As he also has the advantage to ask for whatever he wants, especially with you guys knowing that the cap is not only going up, your owner has a brand new stadium that he has to fill those seats. Who's going to be the names that he's going to sell in those tickets? He does not have the leverage. But again, these are small, tall tale signs that he really doesn't believe in this team.
It's not about me being paid more than him. Like, I'm gonna take what he got. Y'all
Right,
give him that,
right.
give me that. They didn't want to do that. So this was before the All-Star break. So I'm like, you know what?
Damn, that's already about 5 months of negotiations. And it's not rocket science for these agents to actually figure out what teams will have the cap who's contending, especially after the James Harden trade. Philly had plenty of cap space. They did not re-sign Tyrese Maxey before the season started. So there were teams out there that had the money, had the cap. The leverage was definitely not on the Clippers side.
Like, let's not even have no more conversations. Like, let's just play this year out. Cause it was starting to get into like my mood. Now I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to have that energy carry over into the team
on the court.
So,
right.
cause I could see it starting to bleed a little bit into the team where I was just like disconnected. I didn't want to fuck with nobody. Like, I was kind of just, kind of to myself a little bit. So I was like, man, let's just let this shit play out. Let me get to the end of this year and we'll discuss this again. We'll pick up, conversations again.
Now, why enter into a brand new season lowballing one of the players you want to allegedly keep? One thing we could shoot the Clippers bail with, especially after seeing the results of this year's playoffs, Paul George has been quite questionable, at least in the last 3 years. A couple of times, man, I would say about 2 times in the playoffs. His performance has not quite been up to par. But still, if you look at the Clippers' salary, the way they structured everything, giving James Harden a 2-year deal, giving Kawhi a 3-year deal, having Paul George on the books for the same deal as Kawhi, it's not really going to affect them. They're not going to hit the second apron on that cap sheet because by the time that happens, the cap is going to go up in 25-26. So they will have extra money to fill up the roster. So what's really the excuse? It's almost like Steve Ballmer ran out of syringes because that roided up energy is completely gone.
So we do that, right? Season in, I finished healthy. 74 games played.
Yep,
and had one of my most efficient seasons.
But not the playoffs, P. Not the playoffs. Let's not cap about that. That Mavericks series was not looking good. And I believe Steve Ballmer might had enough. We're talking about from the 2020 pandemic bubble and the numerous seasons either you and Kawhi were out. It wouldn't be far-fetched in their minds that they believe that this whole experiment has peaked.
So now we go into negotiations. Now they bring it to 3 years.
Where we at?
150. So basically around what they gave Kawhi. So a part of me was still like, all right, that's cool. It sucks that it had to get to this point, like that we couldn't get this figured out a lot sooner. But
Way early, right?
now we at the end of the year, 3 years, 150. So I'm like, all right, like now we're in a ballpark. You know what I mean? Now we can have conversation here.
It seems like they didn't think PG was going to call their bluff. Being the fact that Paul George and Kawhi are LA homegrown, they might have thought, hey, these guys want to stay here, keep their kids in the schools around here, and enjoy being close to their families. We could kind of leverage that to making these guys take a shorter term deal. But unfortunately for the Clippers, they were no longer a package deal. You see, when the whole Kawhi Clippers era had began, they were a package deal. And in hindsight, seeing the way that the cap has gone up and how some of the things play out, people's options change. And they're going to be loyal to their families, most importantly, and to themselves.
It still wasn't about the money. Because when I went back to the negotiation at the end of the year, I presented the 150 no trade. Because in the meeting, they're like, we want you here long term. We want to, when you're retired, we want you to be a Clippers for a lifetime. Like all.
Damn, that's the same spew that they gave Blake Griffin. Then they give him the max and then send him to Detroit. It is cold in the D. Woo. We never heard of Blake Griffin ever again.
Stuff. We want you to be here. We want you to be a Clippers your whole career. So I'm like, cool. Give me the 3 years, 150, no trade then. Like no trade clause. Then I'm taking less, but at least I know I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm committed to y'all. Like they didn't want to do the no trade.
Do that?
Wow.
So then now I'm like, oh.
That was smart by PG, calling the no trade. If he's going to take a shorter term deal, make sure that it's the deal that he wants and he gets to stay in LA, because they will ship your ass as you begin to break down. I believe he'll be entering age 36 or just his mid to late 30s. So we already know things are already going to start heading downhill, and these franchises, boy, they're going to ship you off faster than the Amazon Prime package.
Well, then it only makes sense for me to do 4 years, 212. right?
Yeah.
Like at least
Yeah.
pay me my money. If y'all gonna trade me, then y'all gonna trade me. But at least like now I'm not in a situation where I could have got more had I just gone to free agency, then take this deal and then y'all could just ship me wherever I want. And then
Right.
now I'm on this deal that I didn't want.
Right.
So they didn't want to do that. So then I was like, now I'm open to entertaining what's out there. And then, I mean, you know, through the negotiations, they wasn't budging. They weren't gonna budge. I wasn't gonna budge. I thought I played well enough for them to, you know, be like, you know what, he's a part of our future. Like, I thought I did that. I thought I earned that. You know,
You did, Paul. You did in the regular season. And even through your postseason struggles, you still earn the money because you have the leverage. Nowadays in the NBA, we don't have to get too caught up on who's the highest paid guy. It's according to what you could leverage. If you're the only two-way small forward available in the free agency market and a lot of teams are bidding for your services, you're going to probably garner something close to a max deal. That's the way the players and the owners collectively bargain the new structure going forward for the start of the 24-25 season. The days of having 3-star players on max deals all on one team, it's over, man. It's over for that. Those teams are going to be strangled very slowly season by season into signing their own guys for either double the price because of the tax, or they're going to be left to be bargain hunting in the player minimum market, as we see the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets being forced into that rabbit hole as we speak. And also, I'll include the Milwaukee Bucks. That's what happens when you go star chasing. If it doesn't work out, the way that new CBA is set up, they're going to start punishing teams that do that. And this might have been enough to scare Steve Ballmer and the Clippers front office from constructing their rosters in a similar fashion.
granted, we didn't win while I was there, but luck has a lot to do with that. You know, we couldn't remain healthy as a unit. But I thought I did enough to earn
To
that.
earn that money.
They didn't want to do it, so it was just a stalemate. We came to a stale, and ultimately it was like, all right, that ship has sailed. Like at that point, it was like, man, I love Steve, I love Lawrence, but at that point, it didn't even feel right to come back with that type of energy and be comfortable playing back in LA.
What did Steve say to you?
I mean, you know, it's taking his word. You know what I mean? In that situation, it's taking his word. Like, no, I don't want to trade you. That's not the reason I want to resign you. Which I get, you know, and I understand. And I don't know. Steve is a good dude. Like, you know, I love Steve as an owner. One of the best owners that I played for.
But that player-owner relationship dynamic is never going to play out better than the business. Steve Ballmer does not want to be sort of put in a compromising position with this brand new stadium where he's just stuck with a high salary roster, losing first-round draft picks to be put at the end of the rounds, year in, year out, and dealing with all sorts of unintended consequences from the new CBA. It's a complete headache. Teams do not want to be caught in that mess. It's actually going to stunt one of these franchises for a real long time. We're just waiting to see how it plays out. It's either going to happen to the Suns, the Bucks, or even the Denver Nuggets. They may not actually be able to utilize Jokic's prime years because the way the league is currently structured. That Michael Porter Jr. contract might come back to bite him in the ass.
But, you know, it's a business. Like, I won't take nobody's word if they can't put it in writing.
Right.
That's why I had to stop the negotiations during the season, because it was personal. Like, that's how y'all view me. You know what I mean? Which is fine.
No, it's not fine. They might as well have not offered you anything. To enter into a crucial season like that, it's actually making perfect sense right now, because they did rush into that James Harden trade when things began to get rocky in Philly. But from the outside looking in, all of us spectators thought they were trying to build a big three, when the whole time they really got James Harden as a possible replacement for PG. But it leaves you to wonder how much sacrifices they make just in this PG experiment, because they did give up 5 first-round picks to Oklahoma City to get him and Kawhi to come to the Clippers. And now they gave up 2 additional first-round picks and I believe some second-round picks in order to get James Harden from Philly. So quite a sacrifice made from the LA Clippers. They're very bleak in draft assets, and going into a brand new arena, it leaves you to wonder, with an injury-riddled Kawhi Leonard, what options do they have to really put a good product in front of fans? Not only for the present day, but for the future.
Like, in all of this, that's why it's no love lost, no hard feelings. Like, if that's how y'all view me, fine. That's cool. Now I got to go somewhere else. It's nothing wrong with that.
Like you said, they say it's business. You say
it's business. Yeah,
too.
it's business. I got to do what's best for me and my family. If that's how y'all view me and that's where my value is, then no hard feeling. Like, I'm going to go where I'm appreciated at.
At the end of the day, who life is it?
It's business. Like, you know, I wasn't. I was torn a little bit because of the I don't know, just the history we had this past 5 years. Shit I was playing through, like injuries and stuff I was playing through.
Ooh, boy, to play through some injuries, to know that they lowballed you like that, it's crazy. But Paul right here is admitting in very subtle words, it was tough. You can see some of the sentiments he had going into the season with just that lowball offer. And the Clippers had no fucking leverage. They might as well have told Paul George, we'll speak at the end of the season. Why send him a lowball offer like that? It makes no sense.
I was everything I had. We had some good ups, we had some downs. But I thought, again, I thought I deserved more than, especially for the first initial contract, like the first initial conversation.
It's hard to not take that personal, like,
bro.
That's I understand negotiations too.
Again, you see the sentiments from Paul George. You hear him? Personal, bro. He felt the type of way. This is a very bad aura to be hanging over a player's head going into a season. A guy that's your star. But it leaves you to wonder, did they really believe that they could leverage Paul George being in LA, homegrown, him wanting to be there with his family? Did they leverage that in thinking that he would take a lesser deal because of that circumstance, not wanting to move his family and his kids into a brand new school across the country? More than likely, Kawhi didn't want to make that move because it was already shocking enough that he took a 3-year deal, even with his injury history. We already know when Kawhi is healthy, we know what he could do. And based off of them getting that brand new stadium, they need a face. So the leverage right now is with the star players that were already existing on this team.
You know, it's a business. You got to maybe start down here and we'll end up here. But that's a
pretty
low starting point to just throw that on the table and show your cards like that.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Right.
So
that was like that part you can't never like overlook. Like that's really how y'all felt. And so that kind of just was like, you know what else is out there? But it was tough, bro. It was tough conversations. That's why it was so stressful. Like this whole week and a half was a very stressful week and a half. They walked me through everything, how it's gonna look, and into it. It's damn near done. So it was cool to see it kind of firsthand. Everything, the facility, the building is crazy.
And the media landscape of today puts a lot of these franchises in uncharted territory. Paul George was the closest thing that the Clippers had into having a direct connection with the fans with this podcast. This is a brand new dynamic that we're seeing play out in real time. Because now with this show, he can even narrate and sort of paint the picture on his side how he wanted to stay, but the Clippers gave him the boot out. NBA franchises never had to deal with these type of things before. They used to ship guys off once they never needed them anymore. And LeBron James back in 2010 going to South Beach kind of broke that mold. And it seems like franchises ever since are kind of still struggling to kind of get that footprint back. And right now, one of their only controls to that medium is guys like Woj. Best believe he gets a lot of that information because he's working directly with the owners. And a lot of narratives or just things they want to frame within the media to devalue players or increase certain players' stock price, Woj is the perfect medium for that. But unfortunately for the Clippers, getting rid of Paul George also lost them a lot of free marketing through his podcast. That was a way for their fans to interact directly with their star. Because Kawhi is very introverted and James Harden, we already know what his extracurricular activities are, and them chicken wings and stripper poles, it's not going to be a good look if he reveals a lot of that, what's going on in his his personal circles.
Hey.
But I'm embracing the new change. I love the new change. You know what was helpful? So me, Aaron, YT, we took a little trip down to Cabo ourselves, right? One weekend. And, you know, this was already, you know, in the beginning stages of us negotiating with Clippers. And so I was like, you know what? I just need to get away. Like, let's go somewhere where we can just, you know, vibe out, play golf, chop it up. The finals was going on at the time, so watch basketball games by the pool. Like, we was just on a cool little trip. And that was like the piece I needed going into all the free agency talks. Was just a chance to sit back, kind of evaluate everything, let everything play out. Before ultimately it was just like I'm comfortable with the decision. Like I think at that point is when I was the first time I was comfortable with like, all right, if I'm not in LA, what would that look like?
Once again, the Clippers played on that comfortability of him being at home. They knew Kawhi wanted to be there, but PG being at the short end of the stick, he really had to reevaluate things. And this is the interesting thing with social media, the fact that guys kind of let a lot of things be known about themselves, what they like to do. Sometimes the media, and especially even NBA franchises, they get into these things because they're looking for weak points. And we see it play out with Kawhi Leonard. That's why the NBA media overall, they have issues with him. He keeps to himself. He actually chose the media without them realizing it, because he's not trying to put himself in a circumstance where they can easily read him. They know what bothers him. Once they know what bothers you, they know how to troll you. They pick on any insecurities that they see you have. And this affects even the most talented players in the league, as we've seen it play out with Kevin Durant in Golden State. The sentiments of him joining a 73-win team and Steph being a day one in Golden State, as even Bob Myers in the parade celebration had even mentioned it. So the Clippers having two introverted stars in Paul George and Kawhi, they possibly made too much of an assumption of them being a package deal and wanting to stay in LA. And Paul George right here admitting that he had to get away and actually make peace of just knowing the possibilities of not being in LA. We begin to see that these franchises had a nice understanding of the stranglehold the LA market had on these guys.
And it was tough though. Like I had to have conversations with Daniela. I had to have conversations with my parents. My parents was like, man, son, go where you appreciate it. Like, don't worry about us. Daniela, the same thing. Like, you know, we'll follow you. Don't worry about us.
It's awesome.
Yeah, which was
big.
very helpful. The only part that was pulling me back was the kids. That was the only part pulling me back into that situation was the kids.
There goes that leverage I was talking about. The Clippers franchise is dangling that LA life, being close to home, being next to your parents. That comfortability that might allow you to take a low ball deal. These are the things that Paul George entered into last season conflicted with. And he relatively had a great season. So it leaves us to wonder, after 5 years, if the Clippers really believe that this Paul George and Kawhi Leonard saga had any more legs left.
But, you know, ultimately you just gotta, you know, you gotta make the right decision. Just what was best. And again, people gonna think like, oh, he did it for the money. Like it wasn't initially about the money, because I was going to take less to stay with. Why? Mm-hmm. Less money, less years. I was down to do both until. Mm-hmm. And then now it's like, man, I'm not like, take less for what now? I owed Kawhi that conversation. I called him up and was just like, man, listen, you know, I think I'm gonna go elsewhere. Like conversations with the Clippers didn't go how I wanted to. I kind of broke down how I told you guys how it all played out. You know, and we had that conversation and I was like, man, like I gotta do what's best. And I mean, he understood. He like, I mean, go get your bag. He's like, P, go get your bag. Like, you know, I can't.
Yo, Kawhi said that in his robotic voice. Get your bag, my G. I will be staying here in LA making Terminator Salvation.
We'd be mad at you, you know. So, you know, I thought, you know, and I look at Kawhi as one of my best friends in this league, you know, somebody that, you know, I fuck with. Like, you know, our families, you know, love each other. You know, it was tough to leave him. Just with, you know, how much I enjoyed being out there with him. That was one of a big decision too, that weighed a lot on me. Was just, damn, I'm leaving my boy, like leaving why. But I had to have that conversation with him. We talked, and you know, he gave me his blessings of like, man, just, you know, go do what's best for you. I get flack for this too, right? Like people give me shit for this too, of thinking I was the reason that Thunder team broke up, which was not the case. Again, it was me having to do what was best for me in that situation. So after Toronto wins, right?
Right.
Y and them win it, I text Y. Congrats, bro. I think he ended up calling me right after. What you gonna do?
My man got a quick oil change and said, "What you gonna do?"
What you mean? Like, what you gonna do? Like, you comfortable there? You good there? I'm like, yeah, bro. Like, I just resigned. Like, yeah, we gonna try to do this shit next year. Like, he like, nah. I hear people trying to get out of there. Let me call you back. That was the initial start of that conversation, and then me and him was just working on how can we make this happen. And I was close to going to Toronto. Like, we were deciding to go to Toronto or the Clippers. Ultimately, the Clippers put something better.
Those 5 first-round picks, boy. Maybe that was the cost of doing business to get Kawhi over there. Those 5 first-round picks, they could just chalk it up to that. They're not even thinking of it as this is what it is to get PG here. This is what it is to get Kawhi here. It looks like the Clippers always had Kawhi Leonard as the main priority, whether he's hurt or not. He's their guy.
A better package together, a better trade package together that sent me to LA. But I was close. He was going to re-sign to Toronto and we was going to go to Toronto. That was the origin and the beginning of that story. And it was just a whirlwind of how it played out. We linked up. So it was Drake's crib when he was in Hidden Hills. And at the time I was living in Hidden Hills. So Drake was probably like 5 minutes around the corner from me. So I like, man, pull up, let's chop it up. So I pulled up, we chopped it up, what did it look like, how to happen, and if it was even a chance. So that was
You know, Kawhi wasn't even thinking of Drake. He was like, in his little Terminator voice, fuck Toronto, they're not like us.
Kind of too, like after that phone conversation, that was kind of like the next phase of us linking up and talking that through. But it was a bit of both. It was also to like congratulate them because this was why they just won it. So it was like, you know, it was a congratulation, like, you know, shit, you did it, bro. So it was a lot of that more so than anything.
He also spoke about the Warriors potentially, quote unquote, wanted to make a trade with the Clippers to get his services. And that's another team that's quickly skated and trying to avoid the second apron. Even though they drafted all their players, the Warriors benefited from the cap going up in 2017. That's how they were able to sign Kevin Durant and maintain their stars. And you could even look at Stephen Curry. They signed him a few years ahead, knowing that the cap was going to go up, and they took advantage of him having ankle issues. He signed a much lesser deal than he normally would have gotten. But again, the Warriors are a franchise right now in flux, and they're trying to adapt to the brand new landscape of the NBA, especially when it pertains to the new CBA.
That was a real thing. Like, that was a real thing. That was close to being done. That deal was close to being done from what I was being, you know, told on the situation. You know, they was expressing like just how much they wanted me there, how I could have fit in perfectly with, you know, Draymond, Steph,
Klay probably would have
Podziemski,
stayed. Shit.
Kuminga, like Wiggins. They didn't know how or what, you know, package was going to be there to trade for me. But
it seems like that team is in an influx in between kind of building for the generational talent that they have now and Stephen Curry, best utilizing him, trying to put him in a position to win the most championships as possible, And at the same time, they're trying to make sure that they have a product for their brand new Chase Arena, which is a cash generating cow. I mean, they make $500 million more than the Lakers and Knicks or just any other large market NBA franchise. It's just unreal, the formula that they have generating money with that stadium.
And, you know, it was still an opportunity to stay close to home, stay on the West Coast. And you know, it was a win-win. Like, I think Steph is a unicorn, one of one player, and Joel's a unicorn, one of one player. So it was kind of like a good situation to be in the middle of. But ultimately, like, the deal didn't go through. I think Clippers didn't want a certain trade deal that Warriors were willing to give. And yeah, it just didn't happen. But it was close. It was close.
So it is what it is. We see the Clippers maneuvering after PG had left. They signed Kevin Porter Jr. on a 2-year guaranteed deal with a 2nd-year player option. And if it works out, it's a good deal for them. We've seen them go into that kind of Josh Primo bag before, getting players with questionable past. But going into next season, it'll be interesting to see what exactly is going to be their identity. With them building their roster back up with old faces like Nick Batum, they still got Norman Powell on the books, guys like Terrence Mann. But with PG no longer there, will James Harden be ready to carry the load, especially with Kawhi Leonard in and out the lineup? The Clippers continue to have a shaky history with superstar players like Blake Griffin, and Steve Ballmer, he's going to have to actually bounce back from this. With Paul George painting such a picture of them just lowballing him, even though he had all the leverage in the world. They got a brand new arena. The cap is going up. There's other teams that are going to be bidding for Paul George's services and willing to give him the contract that he's looking for. The way they approached him, having 1 foot in, 1 foot out, not really wanting to give him the same deal as Kawhi. Then at the last minute, they try to give him the deal. So he was in the right to call their bluff, and now he's in greener pastures in Philadelphia with a great opportunity to compete for a championship. So Klay Thompson in his presser revealed quite a few things among the sentiments of leaving the Golden State Warriors. But before we get to that, I want to say for the first time in a long time, we've seen the Dallas Mavericks finally have an NBA free agent to forego his other options and make a decision to head directly to Dallas. And it's something I've never understood with NBA players, because Dallas is a great warm weather city, no state income tax. But unfortunately, we have not seen this in a while. DeAndre Jordan reneged on his decision to go to Dallas, and ever since then, there's never been any suitors. But Klay, heading into his decisions, had quite a fallout with the Golden State Warriors, as in the weeks leading ahead, they actually fell out of communication as the Warriors stopped answering Klay Thompson's camp as in regards to any counter offers that they had sent over. Now, Klay had rejected a 2-year deal the Warriors had made in the start of the season for $48 million, and he bet on himself. And with things not going his way, his frustrations grew as the fans redded all over him all season long. And let's not forget that 5-year, $180 million deal that they gave him after that major injury in the NBA Finals. Sentiments may have been applied that we did you a favor, Klay. But he gave us great insight to some of those sentiments. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
After 13 years with the Warriors, why was now the time to depart for a new team? And what made Dallas the destination for you?
I mean, whether you play basketball or work in the corporate world or whatever industry, sometimes change just can spur greatness, and a new change of scenery can do wonders. And I'm very grateful for my time at Golden State, but I just felt like, moving on could just re-energize me and do something special for the rest of my career. And Dallas was so attractive because of the young players they have, the style of play, the world-class treatment these players get from this organization. And
that might have been a jab at the Warriors, because they did start Podziemski over Klay sporadically throughout the season. You might still feel a type of way about that.
Just a beautiful city who loves their hoops. So when I was watching the playoffs and I'm watching the Mavs, make a run for the championship, I just saw myself fitting in really well with this team and the personnel. And
why is that, Klay? Why is during the finals, that's when you have some of those sentiments? Once again, around that time, that's when the Warriors stopped sending counteroffers.
They look like they have fun playing with each other and they play for each other, and that was very attractive for me. And that's really all I needed to see, and there's mutual interest there, and that's why I'm here.
Klay, I'm sure you've heard, and I know you had conversations with Steph, with Steve Kerr. What has this been like for you, just emotionally, kind of going through? Divorce is probably not the right word, but closing that chapter after 13 years and just everything that goes along with that.
I mean, probably a little disappointed at first, but then as time goes on, you have a lot of time to reflect and you realize what you did. They can't take that away from you as far as the championships records are meant to be broken, but the impact you have on a community and all that, that will forever live. And
that's why he earned that 5-year, $180 million extension, even after the injury in the NBA Finals. So if there were any sentiments that they did him a favor with that contract, that is not true. He's definitely earned that. Because at that point, they had made the finals 4 times already.
Sometimes, breakups are necessary to do what's right. And I'm not the first athlete in the NBA to go through this. I did grow up in Portland, and I remember when Scottie Pippen came to the Blazers, that was like the biggest day of my life. And I'm not saying I'm Scottie, but they were right there.
That might be a good thing, Klay, because when he went to the Rockets, he had a little bit of a choke up, him and Barkley.
The Lakers almost won a chip, so I take a lot of inspiration from past athletes and how their careers might have gone, astray when they either left the team or joined a new team. And some guys thrive, and I look forward to just kind of being rejuvenated here and playing a lot of good basketball left in the tank.
Wow, rejuvenated here. Man, this is kind of shocking because we never expected Klay to have a fallout with the Warriors. We knew more than likely he might part ways, but this is a complete fallout.
Excited. I still think I can do what I've been able to do, and it's just about being in the best shape I can possibly be. But I know I can help this team, whether it's the knowledge I've gained or big scoring nights. I just still know I can be a very, very good player in this league. There was times last year it was really tough. I mean, everyone expects you to be that all-NBA player, and sometimes it's hard to consistently do that. That's why there's only 15 slots on that team, and coming here is just such a fresh start and feeling just wanted again, and like I bring great value.
That feeling of being wanted, spoke about that earlier with Paul George. It seems like that sentiment with the owners having that disconnect. If you want a player to be right back on your team, sometimes it's not about the money. It's making them feel appreciated. And Klay's camp has reported that the owner kind of distanced himself from Klay this season, especially as far as contract talks. It's even been leaked out that Klay had a golf game with the owner during the season, and things were implied that ownership did not want to speak about the contract during a golf game. So just as Paul George spoke about ownership not necessarily making him feel that they wanted him there, very interesting that Klay kind of displays the same thing. And both players in these situations were willing to take a pay cut.
It just gets me excited to go out there and even work out after this press conference and get shots up. And so, yeah, there was times last year was tough where it wasn't as joyful as it had been in the past. And it's nice to kind of shed that and have a whole new fresh start, whole new group of guys to get to know, and co-workers. So a whole new city. It's really cool, and I'm going to embrace the heck out of this opportunity.
And a great opportunity it will be, as with the additions of Najee Marshall and Quentin Grimes, along with Klay, the Mavs are going to have great spacing, a guy who could create on his own in Najee Marshall, unlike Derrick Jones Jr., and a great defender in Quentin Grimes, unlike Tim Hardaway Jr., as well as being able to knock down shots. So the Mavs have definitely replenished on some firepower here. And kudos to them for actually nailing on a free agent. Klay had passed up on the Lakers, who were offering almost double the amount. So we'll see how things play out. Now, this Stephen A. Smith and Jaylen Brown back and forth has been quite interesting because it's very nuanced and it touched base on a lot of different dynamics, as we're going to break this down layer by layer. From being a company man like Stephen A. Smith to the dynamics that play out with some of the NBA players who are intellectual, them clashing in with media members and not fitting into the typical "I'm just a stupid rich jock" role. Finally, to today's athlete kind of being a corporate shell, not having any opinions or own thoughts, and almost no personality. They sort of just become this universal figure, no different than a toy that has a string pulled on the back. And when you pull on it, the toy just repeats anything that the masses of people approve of. But again, we're going to break this down slow. And starting off with Stephen A. Smith and Jaylen Brown, there seems to be an issue with the NBA media members not quite understanding how to interact with some of the players who are kind of pseudo intellectuals. This has been playing out for most of the NBA's history, especially with the African American players. From them not understanding Kareem back in the day, to Mo Bamba making it well known that some NBA executives were questioning whether he was going to take the game as serious due to his intelligence. Same thing for Jaylen Brown. And to a degree, we've also seen this clash play out with Kyrie Irving when he was a special guest on First Take with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. The athlete that has his own opinions and is constantly seeking for information and understanding and stands on his ground. Media members get very uncomfortable with those type of players who just don't fit into the mold of being a rich, dumb jock. But as far as Jaylen Brown, he is highly gifted off the court as well as on the court. He was offered an internship at NASA when he was in college. He was taking master level courses while maintaining his GPA in his freshman year at Cal. He also played for the chess team, and he was fluent in Spanish and played multiple instruments. And to this day, he's still the youngest person to ever give a lecture at Harvard. So Jaylen Brown does not quite fit into that mold. And over time, we've seen it play out in real time with Jaylen Brown being a person who stands on his word. He doesn't really double back based off of peer pressure. As in the Kyrie Irving situation, people thought he made remarks defending Kyrie, but he clarified things but stood on his ground and never deleted his tweets. So company men like Stephen A. Smith, who want certain people to take the jab, and he's even stated out of his own mouth of how he goes to work thinking, how can he make more money for his bosses? A company man like that moves according to whoever's giving the most money can never really understand how it is to really stand on your square. But Stephen A. made some comments about Jaylen Brown's marketability. You guys check it out, and every once in a while I'll check in.
Brown, it's not so much that he's underrated, it's that he's just not liked because of his quote, "I am better than you" attitude. He knows it. It's the same reason he is not.
Right there, I am better than you. It's not necessarily that. It's the insecurities that he make a lot of media members feel because he does not fit into that typical, "I'm just a dumb jock." Even though media members are in awe of some of these athletes' ability on the court, intellectually, they always assume they have one up on the athlete. But when they run into guys like Kareem, Mo Bamba, Jaylen Brown, and to a degree, Kyrie Irving, a person who's always seeking knowledge, they become frustrated because all the mental gymnastics don't necessarily work on these guys, and they can see right through all the games that they're trying to play. For the most part, the media today, they're just a bunch of trolls. For the most part. The storytelling and journalism, that's just something that they hide behind. But today, the name of the game is to get clicks. And a lot of these athletes see right through it. But it's their job nowadays to kind of play these mental gymnastics to kind of make it seem like they're your friend, when in reality, they're just trying to go viral.
Brown, it's not so much that he's underrated, it's that he's just not liked because of his quote, "I am better than you" attitude. He knows it. It's the same reason he is not as marketable as he should be. That's what an NBA source just sent me.
Now, Jaylen Brown responded directly to Stephen A. Smith on Twitter, asking him to name his sources. And this is what Stephen A. had to say.
First off, that's not happening. It's journalism, not revealing sources.
Once again, there goes the media members hiding behind that shield of quote-unquote journalism, when we all know they're in the business of going viral and clickbaiting.
Secondly, if you continue to watch the segment, I completely disagreed with them, as did Kendrick Perkins. The point we were actually discussing is how underappreciated you are and why that may be, which is why I read the quote. I even brought up how socially conscious you are and how that may not be liked, knowing you're a good brother. Also, that you're a $300 million man and you deserve it. But that doesn't mean naysayers don't get heard. That comes with the territory.
So Stephen A. hiding behind anonymous sources, and right after winning the NBA championship, Jaylen Brown during the parade had actually wore a shirt that says state your anonymous sources. So he did a great troll job on Stephen A. Smith, and very unfortunate for sports media today. It's become the same theater as American politics. Everything's politicized. You're either the good guy or bad guy. You either take this player's side or that player's side. There's no nuances. It's either you're on team blue or you're on team red. Very similar to the way things play out in the streets with gangs. It's either you're on my side or you're the ops. Now, the back and forth between these two continued on into the offseason as Kawhi Leonard exited Team USA due to an injury, and Woj had stated during the finals that Team USA was considering choosing Derek White in case Kawhi Leonard was a no-go, which ended up playing out. But Stephen A. Smith used this exact moment to troll Jaylen Brown. This is what he had to say.
Do y'all believe me now? Yo, Jaylen Brown, do I need to reveal my sources now? Is it not obvious now? How in the hell is a $300 million man now a champion and an NBA Finals MVP who's clearly a top 2 player on the Celtics and a top 15 player in the world, not chosen for Team USA? Because his teammate not named Tatum is selected before him? Come on, y'all.
Once again, Woj has stated during the NBA Finals that Team USA was already considering replacing Kawhi with Derek White. So Stephen A., the company man, is going out of his way to be petty. But it leaves you to wonder, what are some of those sources that he's referring to that he wasn't as marketable? Because Jaylen Brown, let's keep in mind, did have a tiff with Nike, as when they dropped Kyrie Irving, he then tweeted, since when does Nike ever care about ethics? And this is where we got to get deeper into the rabbit hole of who's really influencing who gets on the Team USA roster. As we see, Joel Embiid was also on the team, aka representing Skechers. LeBron at almost age 40 is announced as a starter. That's a very key Nike asset. You see, the Olympics for Team USA basketball is really a big draw for the athletic companies. Nike, Adidas, Reebok, even New Balance. Why do you think Kawhi was out there when we all knew that he was a little bit shaky? He had to at least test it out and give it a go. I know Steve Ballmer didn't want him out there with that new stadium coming up, but him being part of New Balance, this is a great marketing opportunity for them to get their star out and for the world to see their products. So it's obvious it's not just about the best talent on Team USA. It's also about the marketability of the sponsors. Again, that's why guys like Kawhi, aka New Balance, Joel Embiid, aka Skechers, they're out there almost on one leg, trying to make sure that they're part of the showcase. And with the advent of social media, we now see these stars of when they make their travels to China during the summer to promote themselves. This was something that they were doing way back as far as Michael Jordan days, is that the American public never knew this. It was always a pilgrimage every summer for guys like Kobe, Michael Jordan, Tracy McGrady to make their way to China, not only in the behest of Nike, but also the NBA. As Adam Silver is always saying, this is a global game. He speaks at these press conferences, always mentioning the audience as a global audience. Not even 10 years ago, anytime he mentions the NBA audience, you assume that he's speaking about Americans. But now he actually says it in his phrasing, the global audience. Our audience members worldwide. You can see the direction that they are heading in with the key phrases he's using every press conference. The NBA is very good at that. You got to watch the way they word things. They put on a masterclass with that boy. But Jalen having issues with Nike is going to be a huge deterrent on him ever getting on Team USA. He's even worn the Kobe Bryant sneakers this past Christmas without the Nike logo on it. So there are major influences on who gets on the team based off the sponsorships. As we've seen, Tyrese Halliburton was able to get a spot also over guys like Jalen Brunson, even though Tyrese Halliburton been struggling with injuries, which led to the Pacers getting eliminated in the playoffs. But going back to the Stephen A. and Jaylen Brown issue, it's unveiling a couple of other nuances that we really didn't expect to get to. And another dynamic that Stephen A. Smith is always implying when it comes to Jaylen Brown is his outspokenness. With the league going global today, they want their athletes being almost a corporatized version of themselves. They don't really have any opinions. They just sort of play on the court. The personalities are kind of dimmed down a little bit. They don't want their personalities getting too out of hand like Ja Morant. They kind of want them in this tightrope of being in between being cool and hip, but not saying too much, and being sort of a universal figure like Michael Jordan and Barack Obama. Those guys are really trapped in their fame. They can't say too much because they have to appeal to the masses. And we've seen this exact scenario play out with the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. Drake throughout the years has steadily become that corporate figure. He's in a balancing act in between trying to stay relevant and hip, while at the same time he doesn't stand for anything. And that right there goes against the grain of hip hop. You have to stand on something. The whole culture was built off of standing on something. And the main catalyst in the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef was Kendrick pulling his card and making him stand on something. Who does he represent? Who does he stand for? Is he just a corporate shield? And this is where guys like LeBron James, who are kind of in the same balancing act, except he is from the culture, but at the same time, he has to be that universal figure. LeBron is in an interesting place within this beef because with him playing the social media game in order to stay relevant, he might be aligning himself a little bit too close to other figures who have large brands. And in Drake's last beef with Pusha T, after losing, Drake made his first appearance on LeBron James' show, The Shop, and it became a whole Nike propaganda tool because both of them are Nike assets to kind of slowly make the audience realize why Drake had to back out of the beef, why he still is the bigger man. And they sort of rolled out the red carpet for him to come back into the fold after that loss and go on the incredible run that we've seen him have on Scorpion with the hits, the tours. This has never happened in rap history ever, that someone had lost a beef and came back and was able to go on tours and make money and be marketable everywhere. We've never seen this before. Something is very inorganic about it. But here's a double-edged sword that LeBron and Drake being so transparent during this Nike rollout, I love to call it, that was on The Shop, is that the way Maverick Carter tried to narrate the story of Drake putting his energy into that new album, Scorpion, that he had, and coming back with songs insulting anyone that was against him, it ended up leaking out that this track was written by someone else, which was exactly what Pusha T was always accusing him of. And let's keep in mind, at this very exact moment, when Drake is explaining what's going on, LeBron James's brand will forever be attached to this false narration during this rap beef. Ooh, things get sticky when one big brand attaches his name to another one, and it's all under the umbrella of Nike. Things get real sticky. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Lift Yourself comes out with him just talking nonsense. This guy's trolling me. Yeah, he's this was like a manipulative, like, I want to break you thing. So I said, all right, I'm going to go back to distancing myself again. I know what this is. And then the first album drops. And of course, there's a diss song towards me that you produced that's talking about writing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm writing for you.
I was just there with you as friends, helping you, and now you're dissing me. So I'm like, man, this is dark.
This is evil shit.
This is dark. It made me realize, and actually I text Braun after.
You guys spoke about it.
Well, it took me 4 days to really register what had happened.
Wow, he texts Braun. Do we really believe that? Once again, we have to understand the dynamics that are playing out here. Drake just lost a rap battle against Pusha T. And now in order to roll him back out in the public, because there's a lot of money invested in him through Nike, Apple Music at the time, Universal Music Group, other entities was heavily invested in him, Spotify, etc. So Nike having a piece of that investment of him just being popular and wearing their clothes and having their sneaker collabs or OVO merch associated with his brand, so much on the line with that. They rolled him out through their other Nike asset, LeBron James. So right here, this is a Nike rollout for Drake to come back in the fold. But they're going to paint this storyline. That's why LeBron James ties into all this. This is what happens when these guys are kind of in this balancing act of not only associating with other high-level celebrity brands, but also in the balancing act of trying to be cool, but trying to be universal figures. That's why you never see Michael Jordan say too much, or even Barack Obama. They're always towing that line down the middle.
And I text Bron, I said, I hope I don't let you down with my decision. And that was something I was really concerned about.
With your decision to do what, Drake?
To not do anything.
Notice how Maverick Carter is narrating everything. Yo, these Midwest guys, Rich Paul, Maverick Carter, LeBron James, they're fucking good with their propaganda machine.
To not respond. I was more concerned about, like, you know, the people whose opinions I respect and the people who we thrive off competitive nature.
Of course.
But there was, you know, people love to say, like, rap purists and people who just love confrontation. They love to say, hey, man, there's no rules in this shit.
There goes Drake with that rap purist. He means the culture. There is no rap purist. It's just what's organic to the culture.
But there are fucking rules in this shit. Of
course.
And I'm gonna tell you something. It's like, I knew something was gonna come up about my kid. They had to add like the deadbeat thing to make it more appealing, which is fine. And I understand that. And even that, I was like, okay. The mom and dad thing, whatever, you know.
Now, right here, this is very interesting that LeBron never asked Drake, why did you mention the man's wife, though? You answered back, but you pulled his wife's name into it. So now there are no rules. See, LeBron is from the culture. He grew up in Akron in unfortunate circumstances. I believe he missed school for about 60 to 90 days. So LeBron has been through it in his childhood. So he understands, like, hey, man, you cross the line you mentioning people's families, especially their wives, it can go anywhere. But Drake, him being raised in Toronto with his mother, who's not really from that culture, she's a person from the Jewish faith. He was kind of raised in a middle-class neighborhood. He might not have that understanding, like, hey, Drake, this could have gone a completely different way. LeBron could have told him how it goes, but once again, this is a Nike rollout. They got to make this look good for Drake. But unfortunately, the song right here that they're going to talk about, it leaked. The reference track leaked that Drake did not write that shit.
You don't even know my family. It's like I'm gonna tell you, wishing death on my friend that has MS. I study rap battles for a living. Now, when you mention defenseless people who are sick in the hospital that passed away, that really sent me to a place where, you know, I just believed then and believe now that there's just a price that you have to pay for that. It's over. You're gonna get, someone's gonna fucking punch you in the fucking face. The shit's done, the event's over. I wanted to do other things. I didn't want to further your reputation or your career by rapping back at you and having this exchange. And that was it for me.
Drake takes you and like, am I letting you down?
Yeah, what did I tell you?
What did you say to him?
He said that I could never let you down.
I could never let you down, my fellow Nike brother. This is a good rollout, man. These texts might have never happened. That's the crazy thing. These texts could have never happened. They got script writers over there in Nike, man. These people got great branding and marketing people. They know how to roll this out. And a perfect example of it was the Ja Morant interview after his whole gun incident the first time around. They did the interview in the little clinic. It looked like, you know, he was staying at a hospital or whatever it was. And they try to spin the wheel like, oh, this is a mental health issue.
By the way, I
you're the greatest.
By the way, I did, by the way.
Yeah,
you wrote the song.
I did, and I said...
You heard Maverick Carter. You wrote the song. You wrote the song. Nike has great PR people that's around that know how to roll these things out. But again, they're dealing with a culture, a mega force like hip hop. You cannot sway the people as easily. This is a different culture to the core, and public opinion and sentiment man, it weighs heavily in this game.
Terrible things.
You wrote the song and never put it out.
Yeah, because I got home and I just listened back to it and I was like, man, this is not something.
This is the excuse right here of why Drake couldn't come back at Pusha T after Story added on. Once again, these guys are rolling out a certain storyline, but we don't even know if this is even true. And the way Maverick Carter just announced, like, oh, you wrote the song, it's possible that Drake didn't even write it.
I ever want to be remembered for, this is not even a place that I necessarily want to go. And to all the people who enjoy that, I tip my hat to you. By the way, hell of a chess move. The song, I thought it was trash, but the chess move was genius. Back against the wall, I either go all the way filthy or I fall back, and I have this sort of chink in my armor for the rest of time to a rap purist, which is fine, I can live with.
But at the end of the day, he can't go all the way because, once again, Drake, just like LeBron, they're playing the same game. They're sponsored by Nike with Drake and LeBron. Drake has Apple Music behind him, Universal Records, Spotify, all the streaming companies. There's a lot built into Drake. And make no mistake about it, Drake is the first hip-hop artist that when he was coming up, streaming was also coming up at the same time. So he sort of built into that ecosystem. There has been no other rap artists whose careers were coming up at a time when streaming was kind of being built from the ground up. So his catalog plays a huge importance to streaming. As the music executive Larry Jackson had pointed out, Drake's catalog for streaming is worth more than the Beatles, Michael Jackson, and most of the music that was made in the 70s, 50s, and 60s. Because that core audience is not necessarily on streaming, but Drake's audience is. So his catalog for streaming is worth more than the previous eras. So this shows you the level of investment that is into Drake.
That, you know, I would much rather live with that than the things that I was about to, the research I did, the things that I was going to say, and the places that I was going to go, not only for him, but the other guy too, you know? And
the other guy meaning Kanye, but him talking like this, he cannot go there. Once again, Drake is a corporate shield. Once you sign a $400 million deal from Universal or $500 million, whatever the amount he got, he's built into that system. He has to be Universal. They're not putting money into a guy that's going to be talking about beefing, and these guys potentially could get killed in the streets. It's not working like that.
now I feel pure, I'm good.
You feel good?
You know, yeah, and you know what I did? I took that energy, just like you said, I took that energy and I put it into me.
So right here, this is the part of the interview where they line him up and say, hey, what was all that energy you put into? What was that track? And this is where it's going to come back to bite him in the ass, because the exact track they're going to talk about right here, it's exactly what leaked out, that Drake did not write it. And this is exactly what Pusha T was talking about.
Not you. You don't get that.
You told me you didn't have certain songs on Scorpion until that.
I didn't have In My Feelings. I didn't have Nonstop. I didn't have.
What's one of our favorite songs, Mavi? Now.
Oh man, what's one of our favorite songs? LeBron is laying it up. Oh, LeBron, this shit gonna come back to bite you in the ass. You guys are hyping up a song he did not even write.
Sick of these niggas.
Oh my God.
I didn't have Mob Ties.
Oh, I'm sick of
these niggas.
I'll hire some help.
Yeah.
Get rid of these niggas.
Let's do it. It's a rap, baby.
Yes,
Oh man, Mob Ties. Oh, this is coming back to bite them, because during the Kendrick, Lamar, and Drake beef, it leaked out that he did not even write this. And shout out to Vori. Oh, he was straight swimming through this track. The whole cadence, the whole flow, and the fact that he mentioned Mob Ties, which is an affiliation Drake has in Houston. You could tell Vori wrote this track for Drake, because he's talking about affiliation that he has nothing to do with, but Drake does.
Stick of these niggas, hey. Stick of these bitches. Hire a shooter. You ready these bitches. And I'm on my rip. I turn out the bitch. I turn out the bitch. It is what it is, sure. Black push, cause that Lambo moving fast. Watch your homie if he moving on his ass. In the rocket and that bitch ain't got no tag. Louis bags in exchange for body bags. Yeah. Stick of these niggas, hey. I'm sick of these bitches, huh? Sire shooter, you ready these bitches. Fuck what it was, hey. It is what it is, yeah. And I'm with the shits. It is what it is, and I'm so tired. Yeah. I fought with a mob and I got ties. They'll knock you off and pay their ties. Yeah. They want me gone, but don't know why. Yeah. It's too late for all that hubbub shit. I don't trust that you my brother shit. That's why I'm done giving in. That's why I made myself a man.
Damn. Oh, LeBron. This is why you can't tie yourself to guys too much, man. You don't know what they're really doing. We seen LeBron remove the P. Diddy photos or any affiliation he had with him, going to his parties right after all the accusations with P. Diddy came down. And now we're seeing a track with Vori leak out, mentioning Drake's mob ties. Oh, the whole cadence, the whole flow is written by someone else, but yet LeBron James on his Shop Show was bigging up the track. Drake set it up. I put the energy not into him, but into my new tracks. But he's talking about tracks that he didn't even fucking write. And this is the conundrum that these guys are in when they play the social media games, the buddy games, all the PR departments at Nike, Apple, Spotify, Universal. They can't help these guys tap dance out of the public perception when things like this leak out. But again, this is a very nuanced dance that LeBron, Michael Jordan, Drake, Obama, they're all in. They got to be these universal figures, while at the same time, they got to stay relevant. But in this politicized media landscape, people tend to want you to stand for something, take a side. But sometimes when you do stand on your square, guys like Kyrie Irving and Jaylen Brown, we see the company men, media members like Stephen A. Smith make comments that these guys are not as marketable. Oh, and he has anonymous sources telling them that. But again, it's a double-edged sword. We see Drake kind of paying for it right now because he doesn't necessarily stand for anything. And the hip-hop culture that he exists in, he's going to have to gain that acceptance to be relevant in that culture. And Kendrick Lamar has now put him in a spot where he has to create his own cadence without using the sounds of Atlanta, the West Coast. The OVO owl has actually been put into a cage where he might not even realize that he's in a cage. The same way figures like Obama and Michael Jordan are sort of in the same cage where they can't necessarily say too much. They can't be too opinionated. They got to be a universal figure. LeBron James, from time to time, he teeters around that. He bends too far left or he bends too far right, but he's still doing the balancing act, him being a major Nike asset. But in hip hop culture, unfortunately, you cannot toe that line. You got to stand for something. And that's the conundrum Drake finds himself in. But these are very interesting dynamics here at play. We've never really seen it on this type of level before. So many things mixed in, from the tech companies, social media, everything being so transparent, to the political theater in American politics is bleeding into sports, art, fashion, hip hop culture. The lines are completely blurred, man. So every once in a while, it's always great to touch base on a lot of cultural nuances that are going on within the world of sports, especially to pertaining to athletes going broke, as some players might be culturally from a family where the money doesn't necessarily trickle up to future generations, but instead trickles down to past generations to have them keeping up with the Joneses. But Cam Newton, as well as Charles Barkley, gave some great insight to not only how the pay structure works from state to state with the athletes, but what goes on behind the scenes. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Yeah, so let's break it down.
Okay.
All right, and I think a lot of people are ignorant in regards to money and how it's made, okay? So when I look at Amon-Ra St. Brown's 4-year, $120 million contract, 30 mil of that is what he's gonna make per year. All right. What people don't also know, you're gonna get taxed in every state that you play. That's outside of, so the team is gonna take that federal tax.
Okay.
But you are responsible for the state tax for all the states that you play.
So break it down.
If they play San Francisco, you got to pay San Francisco tax. You also got to pay Atlanta tax. Okay, you got to pay Miami tax. Okay, you got to pay Chicago tax. And you got to pay, well, you got to pay Minnesota tax just in their division. You got to pay Green Bay tax because you're in their division. You got to pay the Vikings tax. Or no, I said Minnesota, Chicago. You got to pay Chicago state tax too. You have to do that. So people don't understand taxes. If anybody wants to understand the simple rule of money, use money, don't let money use you. And the rich and wealthy understands that it's not about how much money you make, it's how much money you don't have to spend in taxes. What are you saying, Bug? What I am saying is this. So as an entity, Amon-Ra St. Brown is an entity. Okay. So he will have to get all that cut. So you're taking home $15 million, right? But also you got to get taxed with the state tax. Cool. Still a lot of money. But this is the sweet spot.
His salary is 30 mil, so that's why Cam cut it in half right there. 30 mil before tax, that's why he said 15 after, but 15 is generous. It might be a little bit less than that because you got to pay agents and insurance and all kinds of other fees. But the number that's always marketed is the before tax number. That's why these players kind of struggle with saying no to family members and distant cousins and ex-girlfriends, because that before tax number is always the amount displayed. Hell, it's even in the video games in the 2K when everyone's trying to do their best version of being a GM.
You're making that in 17 weeks. So just do the numbers. For entertainment purposes, can somebody please tell me $15,700,000 divided by 17? So he's gonna take home every Tuesday $923,529 and what is that? 41 cents.
You better look at it like he only taking home 300,000.
Give or take. Oh, that's whether he catches 4 touchdowns or drop 4 touchdowns. So even with that,
I tell you what, the IRS gonna be catching all them touchdowns no matter what the final score is. It could be 0-0. The IRS is getting touchdowns still.
You gotta understand, you got a bunch of gimmies that's coming. They coming. What's a gimme, Cam?
Come on now.
You got parents, hey, gimme, 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 gimme. Homeboys, gimme, 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 gimme. Homegirls, gimme, 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 gimme. Family member, gimme, gimme. Partner, Look, tell you something. I would love to use this app for, hey, bro, I want to come support. I want to come to a game. I will send them a link to StubHub.
Okay.
That's how you support.
That's how you support.
You know what I'm saying? Shit, support me? That ain't no +1. Because then now you say, all right, you got enough money to pay for a suite.
Yeah, can you pay for a suite? You're getting $900K a week.
A week? That's cool. That suite gonna cost you anywhere from about, I would say about $30,000 a game.
17 weeks.
And
that's all part of the money trickling backwards. With a lot of players and just a lot of people overall, that would be the circumstance if you came across a lot of money. Unfortunately, it's going to be trickling backwards instead of being best utilized to make sure that's still there for future generations, especially the brothers. Us brothers got to be dealing with a lot of the money kind of trickling backwards. It's just how it is on our side.
Small boy. Let alone, now every stadium is different.
Yeah. Oh.
Paying for a suite in Dallas or New York is completely different than paying for a suite in Atlanta or New Orleans.
That ain't even playoffs.
Just different markets, or even Green Bay. Those different type of suites. So that's also something to keep in mind. And you have to understand this, Amon-Ra, or whoever makes a lot of money. This money has to last you for the rest of your life.
That's scary, boy.
Okay. That's the trick right there. That is the final boss right there, making that money last.
So it's a lot. It's a lot all the money in one fight. Sooner all the money goes, all the pigeons take flight. It's Jay-Z.
Come on now, talk to him, bud.
Come on, bro. Like, it's real shit that people don't understand the management of money. And you go broke because of the mismanagement of money. Because you always gonna think, man, I'm having that realization to this day.
A lot of that mismanagement for players comes in the way of taxes. Boy, when that tax season come around, they gotta hide all the shotguns in the house. Oh shit. But most importantly, it will take a lot of courage for these players to actually make people understand that they're not here to support them as full-grown adults. And this is why you see about 70% of athletes, especially in the NBA, go broke under 10 years after leaving the league. And that's being generous. But a lot of the players don't necessarily come from a social structure where families in previous generations were able to pass anything down. And Charles Barkley speaks on this as he had a run-in with Grant Hill's parents, who established a great life for themselves, but they also had a great teachable moment for Barkley about being guilt-tripped to supporting other full-grown adult family members and friends. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
But I tell these guys, you know, Shannon, when I first was an idiot, when I got my money, I had like 3 or 4 cars. And Dr. J says, how many of those cars can you drive at the same time? I said, what do you mean? He says, how many of those cars you got to drive at the same time? I says, 1. He says, well, why you got 4? He said, Chuck, this money got to last you for the rest of your life. He says, this money got to last you the rest of your life. He says, son, don't waste all your money on cars. Everybody know who you are. Wow. He said, you pull up in a Kia. They know, oh, that's Charles Barkley. You pull up in a Mercedes-Benz or a Rolls-Royce, that's Charles Barkley. But the problem is that money, it's not the fact that you can't afford that car. Right. It's the fact that that $300,000 you spent on that Bentley, if you bought a car for $70,000, $80,000, you would have had $200,000 more in the bank, and it would have been growing and growing, and in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 20 years, that $200,000 is going to be worth a lot more.
And that's the part the older players have to pass on, is not necessarily telling the players what not to do, but give them advice on what to do, how to grow that money. The same thing applies for all of us. You don't have to be a millionaire. It's an unfortunate thing, but the information that gets passed down from elders tend to be what not to do. There needs to be a more proactive approach, but we are in the informational age. And with the NBA cap going up, some of these guys will be making 70 million, 80 million a year. Hopefully we don't hear any more of these horror stories. But let's keep in mind, the vultures will be coming at the players twice as hard, especially on that Instagram. Woo! Damn, they're going to be transforming to whole new schemes out here.
I always tell them, I say, yo, man, we know stuff. I ain't trying to hate on no young guy. But I'm trying to, because I don't want you to be on that list. What list is that? 80% of professional athletes go broke. I don't want you on that fucking list.
Where are they now?
Yeah, well, like, yo, this money, you're 20. Mm-hmm. When you're 55, how much money you gonna have left? Mm-hmm. That's the key. Like I say, I started out and I tell them, I say, yo, man, I've been in your situation. I wasted money on cars. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, oh man. Because when you waste money on cars, you're really just trying to impress other people.
Correct.
That's what you're doing. Wow. That's like, when I used to have nice cars, they said, what kind of rims you gonna put on it? I said, what do you mean? They're like, put some rims on it. I said, so if I put rims on it, I'm really trying to impress other people, because I actually can't see the rims when I'm in the car. That's what I tell them. I said, I can't see the rims when I'm in the car. Right. So that's what Doc said. He said, so you're really trying to impress other people. Right. You don't have to impress people. They already know who the hell you are.
Now, one thing Charles Barkley is not considering is the online factor. At this very moment, Instagram is birthing a new level of consumerism. And it's not necessarily people buying things like the latest exclusive kicks that are like $3 or $4 grand because they like it. They're really buying these things just to flex on the gram for the right little Insta thotty. This is a whole new thing that's going on. Barkley was not in his prime years for this conundrum. The Instagram flexing is a real thing. These guys might not even drive these cars, but they're going to show it off for the gram and the DMs are going to be popping. Barkley's been out of the game. He does not understand the new landscape. This shit has evolved into a brand new monster.
And Herm Edwards, who's somebody I really like and admire, he says, you can have one car. You don't need 5. You don't need a bunch of houses.
No.
He says, I live by the one model. You need one, that's good enough. And like I say, and the young black kids, and I'm talking to them, man, save your money.
Yes.
And another thing, you don't have to take care of all your family and friends. For some reason, black people, myself included, I used to be like, my financial people told me, why are you taking care of 7, 8 people? I'm like, well, he said, no. No, you don't have to take care of everybody.
Right.
Because you're going to go broke.
Mm-hmm.
Now that advice, Barkley had to be careful with it, because was that advisor a brother? Because he might understand the circumstance a lot different. Once again, the family structure is a little bit different. The money tends to be trickling backwards if anyone comes up on it. That's why sometimes we tend to see more brothers go broke after leaving the league versus their Caucasian counterparts. There is a cultural difference there. But Barkley might not have really taken that advice from that advisor, especially if he was Caucasian. But eventually when he meets Grant Hill's parents, the story's a lot different, and it makes sense.
You know, so no, I tell these young kids, yo man, if you want to do something nice for your mom and dad, you want to do something nice for a brother or sister, that's fine. They don't have to be on the payroll.
Right.
You don't, you don't owe them. That was their job to take care of you. But if you want to do something nice for them, that's fine. Grant Hill, his mom.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. Gave me the best advice ever. I said, because we were at the Olympics actually here in Atlanta in '96. And her and Calvin had came down for a couple games. They said, Chuck, we're gonna be here a couple days and we got to get back to work. And I said, Grant just signed the first $100 million contract in NBA history. She says, sit your ass down, Charles. I said, Miss Hill. He says, Charles, I'm gonna just give you some advice. Do not start taking care of your family and friends, because number one, they're never gonna stop and it's gonna ruin all your relationships. Mm-hmm. I said, what do you mean? He says, when you start giving people money, they're never gonna ask you for money one time.
Right.
But she said, the second thing is, no matter what you do for them, the first time you tell them no, they hate you. And I said, what? And I had to learn. People who I have been giving money to, the first time I told them no, they like, no, we're not friends anymore. Yeah. That was a tough and painful lesson for me.
Now, LeBron James has shown a blueprint that completely breaks this mold. You can have your friends and family on payroll, but they gotta be contributing and aspiring to something. You see Mav Carter, Rich Paul. LeBron used his power and influence to put them in the right positions. Get Rich Paul an internship or a shadowing job behind a guy like Leon Rose in CAA. You see everyone around LeBron contributes to his life. Mav Carter handling other business ventures like their production company. And all these things will be structured under LLC, where there's payroll, things can be written off. LeBron definitely has awakened the NBA players on how to structure their lives and how to view themselves while they're in the league. They are definitely a walking entity, so they should be diversifying themselves even in their playing days. But there were other players before LeBron that had done this. LeBron, just using the tools of today, took it to the next level, and he built a valuable circle of people around him. And I'm sure when he entered into the league, he got many learning lessons from Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and other players before them, Dr. J, that had really great business models and diversified themselves and leveraging the power that they had while playing in the league.
Give Junior Bridgman some credit too. People don't know who that is.
Well, every time I see Junior, I say thank you, because Magic is kind of taking over now.
Oh, yes.
But Junior was a good player, but his portfolio, owning all those restaurants, probably being the first billionaire athlete, to be honest with you. Him, Dave Bing, and also is amazing businessman. Right. But every time I see Junior Bridgman, like, for a guy who didn't make a ton of money.
That's what's so impressive.
Yeah,
and didn't have the name.
Didn't have the name to learn how to handle business. And he's probably got 500 to 1,000 restaurants now. And like, does it so low key. Mm-hmm. Does it so low key. like every time I'm around here, I try to pick his brain.
Right.
Because the one, like, it's different now. Because these guys make so much money.
Yeah.
I said, back in our day, I says, dude, and I'm not poo-pooing on this either. I want to make it clear, because when I say it, it's gonna sound stupid. The most money I made was $5 million. That was my last year.
Right.
I says, now that's below the minimum. I says, to be a businessman in our day and become a billionaire, you are great at business.
Right.
You are great at business.
And he wasn't a name. People wanted to attach themselves to Magic.
Yes.
People wanted to attach themselves to Mike.
Yes.
He was Junior Bridgman.
Just a great businessman and a good dude. His to me is one of the greatest stories ever. And if I was the NBA, I would bring him in every year to my teams, and say, guys, because what people don't understand, everybody on an NBA team or NFL team ain't making a lot of money.
True.
Or ain't gonna play a lot of years.
10, 15.
The average, in both sports, the average year is about 4 years. Those are guys who need a Junior Bridgman. That's like, I was watching the draft last night, and this always annoys me about young kids. I was like, these dudes got Louis Vuitton shirts.
Iced out.
And I don't mind a little ice.
Charles Barkley got to realize these kids coming in already cashing in $1 million checks through their NIL deals. And also there's more sharks out there. Some of these guys are going to get nice little advancements before they cash their first NBA check. That's been going on for a long time. But with the way social media is now, those players got to market themselves early, already coming in with an audience that's been following them in social media probably since the age of 15.
But too much ice. They got Dior shoes. I says, they do know that money ain't gonna last forever, right? Get you a pair of Nikes. I'm not paying for no Dior shoes.
Charles Barkley talking shit. He knows what it is. These kids got to market themselves early. But again, with the number of resources, there's a lot of ways the league can actually curb that number of 80% of guys going broke just being 5 years out of the league. There's just too many ways of making sure that that will never be the story going forward. But it's just not about these millionaires. These scenarios apply in all aspects of everyday life. But you guys be sure to check out the links in the description below. Hit up the mailbag with your questions. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.